Hello there and welcome. Thank you for being here with me today. My name is Leslie Benson and I'm filling in for our founder and CEO, Henry Seltzer, to give you the down low on the upcoming full moon lunar eclipse in Leo. Now, I have a lot that I want to share with you today, but before we jump into all that information, I just want to invite you to sit back, maybe close your eyes, and take a nice deep breath. Allowing your awareness to soften and open to all of the new information and any new insights that are ready to blossom for you. And so, at any time during this video, when I'm giving you all of this information, if it's starting to feel like a lot, I invite you to hit the pause button and go ahead and do that. Take a breath and just allow the information to sort of sift and settle into your system. Body check-ins are always a good thing to make sure all of us are sort of online and soaking up what's before us in our experience. So, first things first, I want to switch to the view where you are seeing the chart. Okay, so now the chart should be on your screen. So, what is a lunar eclipse? What does that even mean? A lunar eclipse is when the Earth passes between the sun and the moon, and thereby blocking the light from the sun, so we actually see the Earth's shadow cast onto the face of the moon. And that's what creates that beautiful red color. And if you're in North America, I think areas in South America too, we are getting a treat. It is a total solar eclipse, and if the skies are clear, we'll be able to see it. I will include some viewing information in the links below. So, eclipses are powerful, and this particular one is on the axis of Aquarius and Leo. And before I get into telling you all about some of the flavors that are present in this lunar eclipse chart configuration, I just want to give you a sense of what the astrological weather is like coming in to this eclipse. So in the beginning of this new year, we had a tremendous amount of Saturn energy, and we also had a Capricorn new moon solar eclipse on January 5th. So Saturn rules Capricorn, so this is a tremendous double whopper dose of Saturnine Capricorn energy. And Capricorn has that amazing capacity to create very intelligent structures in order for life to flow more easily through those structures. So what you might be feeling in this new moon is in this new year is all of this new energy to really get grounded and practical, and in a very nuts and bolts kind of way, create better structures and renovate structures in your life so that the visions that you hold for yourself can more easily manifest in the practical, tangible realm and world. If you have been feeling that, great. If you haven't, there's a lot of energy there for you to utilize right now. So I recommend you sort of start leaning into that in various ways. It could look like having a planner and a system of a tangible planner where you're writing things down, you're writing your intentions, you're writing your goals. That's one way. It could be creating a different routine for yourself. There's lots of different ways that you can utilize that sort of Saturnine energy right now. So, in this way where we're harnessing all of this Capricorn energy to really leverage the vision and purpose for our life, that's the broad stroke of what's happening. So as we come into this very different lunar eclipse. It's a different flavor than all that Saturn. We have Sun in Aquarius, Moon in Leo. It's just scooted in there, both at 0 degrees. So the Moon in Leo, what does Leo want? Leo wants that beautiful, bold, fiercely individualistic creation of one's self and one's life. It desires to be as luminous as a star, to be as star-like as we can. Leo is the only sign that's ruled by the sun. So it really does have that desire and that just inclination and tendency to be luminous and radiant in that way. And so that's sort of the main overarching energy for this lunation. We find that opposite, and I just want to point out also, the moon being exactly opposite the sun, just in case you don't know, all full moons, the sun is always opposite the moon. So that's just a basic, something important to know about the lunar cycles if you're interested in learning the basics in that way. So we find the sun opposite here in Aquarius. And so Aquarius is more about collective. It's more about scooting back from the individual way of experiencing life, and more taking some steps back to see a grander and greater and broader sort of eagle-eyed vision. So what's good for the community? What's good for humanity? What's good for the earth, right? There's sort of this higher-minded humanistic quality to Aquarius because it does offer us that invitation to really take a few steps back to get a wider, broader vision and scope of what's happening. So if we combine both of those energies with some of the Capricorn energy that was in the new moon eclipse, we have this really beautiful opportunity to be our most beautifully, boldly expressive, creative selves in a way that's not just doing that for show or because it's fun and we can, but doing it in a way that's really woven and integrated with this idea of being in service to and having in mind the highest good of all beings and the highest good of the family of life, married also to ways of moving that creativity, that life force through us in a way that's very integrated and practical and on purpose. That's Capricorn. So that in and of itself is exciting stuff, if you ask me. And on top of that, we have some really, really powerful configurations accompanying this. So we find Uranus over here, this red glyph, in the last degrees of Aries. Last year, Uranus dipped into the initial degrees of Taurus. There was a lot of talk about that. I can also include the link to the article that we wrote on that in the show notes if you want to revisit what that means. And then it retrograded back into Aries. And so this is sort of Uranus's last hurrah in Aries, finishing up the last business there. And we find him in a very close T-square to the moon and to the sun. So we have Uranus in a T-square to the eclipse axis is like, whew, it's a lot of juice. So when working with Uranus, I like to look at it, well, firstly, it's the great awakener. It's the liberator. And working with it in an energetic sense, sort of the intelligence of the archetype, it behaves sort of like lightning or electricity. And sometimes it's really helpful to look to things in nature to sort of understand the way an archetype will behave and work with us in the symbology. And what is lightning really good at? It's really good at finding a very direct and quick path from ethers to ground. So it has this capacity to sort of jolt us awake. And if that path from ethers to ground is us as a channel for the divinity and creativity and beauty of life moving through us, that electric jolt is helping clear things out of our channel that no longer fit, that don't serve, that have overstayed their welcome. So Uranus, strong Uranus signatures in transits can look like things really shaking up and falling away. And that can be chaotic, that can be confronting, it can be disorienting, but ultimately it is absolutely in service of our highest good and being a clear vessel for life to move through us. So, as we encounter some of those things that might be limiting beliefs or fears, some of the things that are blocking that path from life moving through us in its most graceful, easeful, and divine way, there's going to be some things to tend to within all of that, for sure. And if you are feeling disoriented or like there's too many moving parts and pieces, well, A of all, know you're not alone. That's sort of par for the course for any eclipse portal when there's a lot of energy reorganizing itself. But B of all, I do have some recommendations about how to interface with this sort of chaotic and jarring energy that will help you move through it and land on the other side without getting taken for such a wild ride. Might be a wild ride regardless, but there's always little ways in our awareness that we can attune and orient that can create more grace and ease in the experience. So one of my recommendations with a lot of this strong Uranus T-square energy is, as things are moving and rearranging themselves and shifting in your life, just allow your awareness and perception of things to sort of become diffuse and soft. And if you can back up a little bit with that Aquarius mind, Aquarius view, and see it as a beautiful moving system, like if you look at it from a bird's eye view, there's such an intelligence to the way these things move. So sort of holding it softly and really surrendering, not in a white flag I give up way, but surrendering in a trusting, I trust what's happening way to these greater arcs that are unfolding in our lives. Because there are so many moving parts and pieces, we don't know where they're going to land. And so being diffused and soft with them will help things just to reorganize in a more graceful way. And once things start to land again, you can begin to really start to get into the nitty-gritty more of what you need to do and what choices and decisions you need to make within that context. So what will happen if you get, instead of being in that diffuse softness and sort of without agenda, if you get really attached to things being a certain way or have a strong agenda, or you start grabbing onto the bits and pieces of, and it's understandable that might happen out of fear, because when things start to change, it can bring up fear. But if we do that, we get taken for a ride because so much is moving, it becomes that much more disorienting. So that's my recommendation for sort of interfacing with the strong Uranian energy. And the other really cool thing about this lunar eclipse signature is also at that same degree as Uranus, we have Chiron in Pisces, Ceres in Scorpio, and they are making a grand trine to the moon. And because the sun is opposite the moon, what we actually have is a grand kite configuration. And so, wow, grand kites are powerful and also bring a lot of juice. I almost like to see them as this circuit that's very complete, where all of the parts and pieces can communicate really well with one another. So there's a way that a lot of information can come into our awareness through this. So let's first talk about Chiron. Chiron is the wounded healer, and the way that I like to work with this archetype is not just looking at the wounds, but looking at, oh yes, this infinite spiraling process of healing and what that looks like. And yes, there are the parts that hurt, that are in pain, the wound. And then there's the process of healing that wound, where we bring the pain into our awareness. We feel it. We encounter it with unconditional positive regard and love and acceptance. And in doing so, that love and acceptance can help those places of pain blossom into their unique wisdom. And I do believe wholeheartedly that the places that we are wounded are the places where we actually hold the deepest wisdom and gifts. And then the process may start all over again, where wound, healing, healed, and also healer, where once we've walked a path where we've gone through our own pain and shadows and come out the other side, often we have something to offer others who are needing and wanting to be on that path. So Chiron, lots of healing processes up for this lunar eclipse, and that's a particular way that I like to look at it. But healing processes in any regard, it's going to be up. And then let's go over and we'll talk to Ceres here. So I only use Ceres when she's really prominently, she's not necessarily one that I look to all the time, but if she's prominently and potently configured in a chart, then I definitely lean into her as an archetype. So she is a feminine goddess archetype of the harvest. And if you look at her mythology, her path is very much marked by grief and loss. And so it's interesting to see her as the way that I'm interpreting her in this particular circumstance in relationship to Chiron is the way that we need to be in an ongoing and very fastidious tending with ourselves and our own healing processes, and to fill our cup. It's really hard to offer anything to anyone else if we're coming from a place of lack. So she's about nourishment, and both in a very practical sense of like relationship with food and relationship with actually receiving sustenance physically, but also receiving nourishment in an energetic and spiritual sense. And in doing so, when we drink deeply from the well and our cup is full, we have such a higher capacity to do whatever we need to do in our lives and offer it to others and be in service. But also, when our cup is full, our capacity to heal our own wounds and be in our own process is buoyed. And regardless of whether this is the configuration that I'm talking about or not, my belief is that when we're interfacing with places inside of us that are in pain and in a wounding pattern, coming at it from a place of lack will tend to just sink the ship even further. Whereas if we can get in touch with a place inside of ourselves that feels good, whether it's a memory of a loved one or, the feeling of sunshine on our skin, just anything that feels really good, and we can begin to offer that goodness into the places that hurt. And coming at it from that resource place can help the wound begin to soften and blossom and transform. So, the question to ask ourselves here is, what really fills me up? And I want to offer this in just a very simple-minded, simplistic way where it doesn't have to be like the end-all, be-all thing that will fill my cup forever, but more like in every moment, just kind of asking and checking in yourself, what would fill my cup right now? Actually, literally, a drink of water. Hydration is divine. It would be taking a nap. Do I have time to take a nap before I go to dinner with my friends? I'm going to take a nap. It could be that delicious meal with friends, laughing with friends. It can be just really these simple aspects of life that are easy to gloss over and take for granted. But when we really get present with them and know that what's happening there is that we're filling up our cup. Juicy, delicious. So, really ask yourself that question over the next coming days and on the day during this eclipse. So, the next thing that I would like to talk about within all of this is another beautiful aspect of this whole thing. So we have Mars over here at home in his rulership in Aries. making a trine to the lovely Venus and Jupiter. And Jupiter is also at home in rulership in Sagittarius. And then we have these two in square to Neptune in Pisces, also at home in rulership. So what I'm seeing this as within this whole quite intense configuration where a lot of maybe chaos and disorientation and wounding might be coming up, but also a lot of support and resource for that process. I see this as almost like the wings giving it flight and the legs giving it the chance to like really run and ground in. So the wings would be Jupiter is like this, you know, the jubilant, expansive, friendly teacher, allowing us to soar and see new possibilities and branch into new territory that will help us grow and blossom. And right there with Venus, help us really identify and claim and desire our deepest values, what we value in ourselves, what we value in others. And that she just has that aspect of beauty to her. So there's this real, I'm almost like envisioning this beautiful pair of wings that we can fly on into new territory with this aspect present. And while that might sound a little airy-fairy, then we have Mars over here who's like on the ground running. He's like, yeah, wings, like you fly, I'm going to ground us in. Let's make this thing happen. There's a real belly fire to this that can really help us ground all of the growth work, all of the things that we've been doing to better ourselves, and all of our diligence in that way can really get activated in the choices that we make and in the actions that we take. And then when we have Neptune here sort of as the big, beautiful umbrella overseeing the whole story as it unfolds, it helps us get in touch with the universal field of love and compassion, and helps the whole thing soften. And wherever we may have pitfalls or wounds, or we see other people with all of their messiness and all our human, just all the human messiness, because Lord knows there's a lot of messiness. Neptune, when we're in touch with it, when we're in touch with it in a way that's clear, can really just help us get in touch with that divine compassion for all creatures and for forgiveness for where we mess up. Can also have the tendency for rose-colored lenses. So, I don't know, it's kind of hard to have on rose-colored lenses with our current worldly environment, but there's always the pitfall for that. But I see this more for this lunation and this configuration as a deeply supportive aspect of just being in touch with divine love and compassion for self and other. So, I could probably go on for hours about all the amazing things going on with this eclipse, but I will stop there. And the other thing I really want to encourage you to do, if possible, and if you're interested, is during the actual eclipse, if you have a meditation practice or a spiritual practice that you're actively involved in, I encourage you to, during the exact moment of the eclipse, go into practice and open your senses and your awareness very gently to what the divine wisdom of the eclipse and of the planets and of the universe and of source, or whatever you wish to call that energy, has to communicate with you. There's so much information available to us through the unseen all the time, but especially during eclipse portals. So that's my invitation to you. See what the universe wants to whisper in your ear. There's a tremendous amount available there. And I just also want to drive home the point once again that there's an invitation here to lean into all that is happening with a perception and a framing that all of it is happening with a divine wisdom and in support of our highest good. So as things might get rocky and bumpy, if you can try to keep that in mind, it might be a really helpful anchoring for your awareness. And I think that that is all for now. Many, many blessings to each and every one of you. I'm really grateful if you're still here listening for being with me and joining in this way today. And before I go, I do want to just give a reminder that this amazing, beautiful software that I'm using, Time Passages, was created by our founder, Henry Seltzer, and it's an amazing learning tool. Actually, when I was getting started in my studies, I happened to meet Henry and fall into this beautiful thing we call Astrograph and Time Passages. And I did a lot of my learning just with the software, where I would pull up interpretations and read Henry's interpretations on things. And just being able to follow my own curiosity in that way and explore a chart and get information was a really helpful and fun thing for my learning process. So if you're interested in that, you can visit astrograph.com. I'll also include links below. And now I will transition to the other view. Okay. One other thing I want to remind you also of is we are offering a discount on our 2019 year ahead forecasts. And what these are is they're tailored specifically to your birth chart. So basically it gives you a full report on all of the transits that are happening specifically for you this year. So you might want to look into that, and it'll give you a really good lay of the land of the larger overarching weather and landscape for you very specifically in this year's time. I will also include a link to that. I will include a lot of links below this video. Okay. Many, many blessings to you. Happy full moon lunar eclipse. May you be supported and visited by love and joy and grace on your journey. Thank you for being with me, and I will see you next time.